There are several considerations for planning a UPS replacement. These considerations are very important and will guide you to the correct decision about when to replace a UPS system and with what type of replacement UPS. Did you know that UPS replacement can be a major decision for any company? That's why today on the Power Grid, we're going to discuss key factors in the UPS replacement process. Hello and welcome back to the Power Grid, a podcast to help you build reliability in your electrical system and gives you confidence in power. I'm Brian Brannigan with Power Protection Products. We have been solving power quality problems for almost 30 years. We're your trusted advisor for critical power, cooling, and energy solutions. Uninterruptible power supply systems can last anywhere from 5 to 15 years, and replacing this backup power system can be very complicated from a selection and implementation perspective. Uninterruptible power supply technology changes a lot, and the system that was put in 10 years ago will look and act completely different from an uninterruptible power supply system we put in today. Today we're going to be talking about battery replacements and UPS replacements and the decisions that go into the end of life related to UPS systems. And we brought in the expert, Amy Strong from Power Protection Products.
Hi,
Amy.
Brian.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
How long have you been in the UPS services business?
A little over 15 years. Yeah.
So you have seen a lot of things happen. You've seen batteries replaced. You've seen
Yes.
UPSs replaced. You've gone through some pretty big projects, I would imagine.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. So let's start with if I'm an IT guy and I have a data center and there's a UPS in the data center and I come to a point when I think I might want to replace that UPS, but I'm not sure. How far ahead of the process should I start?
Sure. Well, in terms of time, I would say 8 months to a year in advance is great. And that gives you time to get quotes, have designs put together to see exactly what you need for the future.
There may be electrical requirement changes. And so it's not just quoting the equipment, but some services and contractor lineups and stuff like that. So let's say it's 8 months ahead of time. I'm looking at my UPS system, and I know I need a battery replacement because that's what prompted me to think about replacing the UPS system. Do you see that a lot in your operation?
Yeah, sure. So a battery replacement is not inexpensive, and so a lot of times the question will come up, if not by the IT guy himself, maybe management or the people spending the money, and should we just replace the UPS, right? How much is it going to cost to replace this equipment?
So in the past, I noticed that after you've replaced the batteries every 2 or 3 times, might be a good idea to replace the UPS.
Yes, that's true, because battery replacements are typically done like every 3 to 5 years. So by the time you've done 2 or 3, you're at a 10 or maybe 12-year-old UPS by that time, right?
Yeah. The other thing that I run into, and I'm sure you do too, is I might have a little better handle on what my battery runtime needs to be today than what I did 8 or 10 years ago when the UPS was put in. Right. So I might be getting more batteries or less batteries or even different technologies in batteries. Have you seen a lot of changes in battery technology over the years?
Yes, and the main new battery type, lithium-ion batteries that we all have heard about, right, is what a lot of people are asking for.
And it's hard to put that on an older UPS system.
Right. The technology is different, and they often
So if I wanted to change my runtime or go to new battery technology, there's a good chance you got to change the UPS itself to make
That's
all
correct.
of that happen.
Yes.
And what percent of the new UPS systems would you guess that you deal with when they're being replaced have lithium-ion batteries?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I know exactly, but man, I would say maybe more than 75%.
Oh, so the majority of them are now.
Is that what you're seeing from your end? Is that?
Yeah, well, there's different reasons in different sizes. When we look at the world of UPS systems and adding lithium-ion batteries, we don't have as many choices in runtime. It's a full cabinet of batteries. So you get what you get for runtime. And so if I have a generator and I'm confident in my backup generator, I might only want 10 or 15 minutes of runtime.
Right.
And so to buy a whole new cabinet full of lithium-ion batteries might be a little overkill for that kind of runtime requirement. So we have to kind of stay flexible.
That's
right?
true. I am seeing also that the smaller UPSs do have lithium-ion options now too. So even the single phase. So that's good and exciting for the future.
Okay. So Amy, another consideration for replacing UPS systems has to go back to the basic platform of the UPS. Some manufacturers had 12 or 14 varieties of UPS platforms that have now consolidated down into just several or 4 or 5 UPS platforms. So if I'm sitting out there with an old UPS platform and I need to do a battery replacement, that might be reason enough right there
to
justify right?
Yes.
And when we do a project like that, we call it a rip and replace project. Those can be very complicated because in the UPS world, even 10, 20 years ago, they had this concept of putting everything in one. They had your power, your maintenance bypass, your distribution, your UPS system, and your batteries all in one chain of cabinets that now is an old platform and has to be ripped out. How problematic is that for the data center? Right?
Very problematic.
You almost have to go into a downtime
Yes.
situation, right? Or backup power of some sort.
Yes.
And at that point, it might be a good time to look at going to a A and B side in the data center just for that reason alone, right?
Yes.
So it's hard to rip out some of those old platform UPS systems.
Yeah.
We called them the contractor friend because it was all in one.
Well, it takes a lot of planning to make it happen, which is
another big problem, right? Yeah, and then the other old platforms had large footprints, and I might be able to free up some space in the data center. So if you took a look at say 100 kW UPS from 15 years ago, and looked at what 100 kW UPS looks like today, the footprint is so small, right? So much smaller. And not only that, but they changed the platform to make it easier to service and easier to maintain, easier to swap out modules. And that might actually allow your UPS to last even longer. We haven't seen that yet because we're just now getting the benefits of modular style UPS systems.
Yes.
Now, Amy, another reason to think about changing out your UPS might be because you receive a letter from the manufacturer saying this thing called end of life. Tell us a little bit about that and what that's all about.
Right. So an end of life announcement is that the manufacturer is going to stop selling that UPS. The thing I've seen in the industry is that they typically announce it and then they will service and continue to have parts availability for that equipment for 10 years past the end of the last sale of that piece of equipment. However, it's definitely a red flag that it's time to start planning for a new UPS.
So when it's announced that particular model or series has an end of life, and let's say they give you a 10-year notice,
Right.
right? That
Yes.
it's end of life. We're not going to sell it anymore, but we have some parts available for 10 years.
Correct.
Okay. What about the ability to have a warranty or a service contract on that box?
And again, what I've seen is that they do continue to service it on a full maintenance plan through the end of that 10-year life announcement.
Yeah.
At the end of that time, they will no longer fully cover the unit. So, if you need parts, you're going to pay for parts at retail, and there may or may not be techs who are qualified on that equipment anymore because they're not training new techs to service that UPS.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that on the older platforms, the way they would troubleshoot the UPS would be they would go into it circuit board by circuit board and drill down to what the failure is and try to fix that particular part, whether it's a capacitor or a circuit board or a display. And it's harder and harder to find a circuit board from 15 years ago or a display from back then and find a replacement for it.
Yeah, that's correct.
So how do they keep all of these parts around? Do they have a warehouse of spare parts that they use for this end of life?
During the 10-year life period, they do. What I have seen is that they plan for that parts availability based on the equipment that is installed or that they know that they've sold, so that they feel fairly confident. However, you never know. That is no guarantee. So, there could be a part that would become unavailable, once you're in that 10-year period.
So when we choose a new UPS, we're choosing a new way to service it too. Because typically these parts are much more modular and require much less troubleshooting. And they're also a little more smart about diagnostics.
Right, exactly. Right? Yeah, oftentimes, just the display will tell you exactly what is wrong and what needs to be replaced.
So that's a great reason to replace your UPS, even if it is in that end-of-life scenario.
Correct.
You can get a lot of other benefits and ease of maintenance. It takes a pretty well-trained service tech to know how to go through and troubleshoot an older UPS. Those guys are so valuable out in the field, right?
Yeah, and that's probably becoming a little bit of a lost art as the equipment becomes, like you said, smarter.
Yeah. So, Amy, another consideration when we're talking about a UPS replacement is changing the size of the UPS, right? Yep. We may want a bigger one. We may want a smaller one. We may want a small one now that we can expand later.
Right.
Right. And are you seeing this kind of flexibility as being commonplace now in UPS replacement?
Yeah. 10 and 15 years ago, there were big data centers being built. And so, they were thinking, I need this capacity for the future. And over the, time, when everything started going to the cloud, data centers, especially the smaller ones, realized, I'm way oversized for what we're actually needing to keep on premises.
Virtualization took a lot of local capacity off the UPS and put it up on the cloud.
Yeah. So as I've been seeing these rip and replace projects, more often than not, they're downsizing.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're getting a smaller UPS, but it's more modular and a little smarter, right, than what they used to have.
However, just recently, with AI expanding, I think we're seeing maybe it go the other direction again.
We're seeing huge megawatt demands in some data centers and small 40 kW demands in virtualized local data centers, right?
Correct.
For businesses.
Yeah.
And so when we're changing our UPS system, and if we virtualized our data center a little bit in a small corporation or medium-sized corporation, it's probably more critical now to think about having a dedicated A and B side in the data center, right? You
True.
may not have got it the first time around 15 years ago, but now you're right sizing, and it might be a good idea to look at even a 2 UPS system, right?
Yeah, and in fact, Brian, you and I were on a call just recently where, as one of the options that we were talking about with the customer was exactly that. Because now that they're planning to do a rip and replace, it's the time to do that.
Almost all the equipment in the data center racks are dual corded, and so in order to avoid downtime, we build a dedicated B-side power system, UPS. For the B side, we pull all the B cords into one UPS system. And now we can take that old 15-year-old UPS system and take that out of there and rip and replace and match it with a matching UPS. So we have a right-sized, brand new, fresh batteries, maybe lithium-ion, maybe not, A and B side to our critical corporate data center that's virtualized, right?
Yes.
So we need to run it even more now than ever.
Right. And in the end, the IT guy feels like a hero.
Boom, drop the mic right there. Good job, Amy. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today on the Power Grid. We're so happy to have you as part of the team and to get your insights on ripping and replacing UPS projects.
Thanks for having me here today, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on the Power Grid. Uninterruptible power supply replacement can be a difficult project, and P3 is here to help you with the decision process. A site visit and an understanding of your current and future needs is almost always needed. Learn more by checking out the podcast notes or go to p3-inc.com.